Wlimington, North Carolina, is a port town whose history dates back to the 1700s. And like most ports, it has a rowdy history that has left its mark on the city to this day. Of all the haunted locations, the most troubling is the place where the city's first gallows stood.
Sitting here in the Price Gauze House, otherwise known as the Hanging House, this house was built over a hanging ground. They did all the public hangings in Wlimington from 1800 to 1855 on the lot where this house stands now. So when Dr. William Price built this house, a lot of these unfortunate individuals that had hit the end of a rope and were buried, and now they're in here haunting this place.
Approximately a year ago, my wife and I had heard about the Wlimington ghost tours. And my being very skeptical of these type things and not really a believer, but she insisted that we go. And we walked up to about the middle of town, and he was describing this old house that was supposed to have been a place where they hung criminals in the 1800s.
This was a hanging ground. Dr. William Price, a very practical and moneyed man, built a house on a hanging ground. He thought, just because a couple of hundred people got hanged there, that won't affect my home, that won't affect my family life.
Kept talking about the house being that these spirits from these criminals had been hung, had entered the house, and I wasn't sure, but more he talked, the more he sounded believable, and I'm still not, I'm very skeptical of those type things, but when he walked away, I looked up at the second story window, and something or someone had written help. At that particular time, I called the guy back and says, there's something up there, someone has written help on the window.
Yeah, someone or something. And I looked up and I saw it and I said, they're gonna have to get help from somebody else. And I went on my merry way. And they were sort of insistent that we help whoever or whatever it was. And I told them, I said, you go up there and help them, and you're gonna be writing help in the window. I said, you better come on, and they came with me.
At that particular time, I became a believer. There is such things because I was not hallucinating or anything. I saw it, and I really don't know how to explain it, but it was there.
There's actually a secret that goes along with this property. You see, many of the men, women, and children who were hung here at this gallows came from other ports of call. And with no one to claim their bodies or pay for burial expense, they simply dug trenches all around here and buried them for free. And then in 1860, just a few years after they moved the gallows a few blocks east of here, away from the ever-encroaching downtown, Dr. William Price, against the advice of his friends, built his family home here. Now, one summer, the Prices had a niece in to visit them. She raced upstairs to her bedroom, and in the room was an old vanity with a beautiful mirror, which she was enthralled with. And she sat in front of that mirror and she went about brushing her hair. While she was brushing her hair, she started to feel fingers running through the back of her hair. She turned to find no one in the room. When she turned back to the mirror, there was a gauzy image of a man, a young man, standing in that mirror. Other times, the family would be upstairs sleeping late in the evening, and they would hear sounds coming from the downstairs. Sometimes they'd hear voices, other times they'd hear furnishings as they were being dragged about the lower floors. They had many different experiences with these sounds, and they also included scratching noises that would periodically be heard coming from inside of the walls. In 1996, Hurricane Fran ripped through this area. The hurricane did extensive damage. It closed off most of our beaches here. And an architect that worked here, BMS Architects, lived at Carolina Beach. So the people here at the architectural firm said that he could sleep on the second floor. They already had electricity here. So he set up his bed up on the second floor in one of the offices. One night, he was startled awake by sounds coming from the lower floor. What he heard was furnishings as they were being dragged back and forth. Now this alarmed him, but the sounds grew and grew and grew to a point where he could take it no longer. Finally forced himself out of the house, racing down the stairs, out the back door, got in his car, and he drove to Walmart. He slept in the Walmart parking lot, returning the next morning at 8 a.m. Of course, he returned wearing his pajamas because that's the way he ran out of the house.
After the break, telekinetic activity in the house on Gallows Hill.
This hanging house is getting a national reputation as a haunted house. And scientific groups have been in touch about it, and paranormal societies. They all want to know about this one house. Well, I had a medium on my tour one night, but he just wanted to go back and see it on his own. So I took him back to the house. It was just the two of us. Then we're walking back around the side of the house. He's absolutely freezing back there. He's going, "Coal pockets." He goes, "Is that always there?" He's pointing up at one of the windows. I looked, and I saw this old lantern burning in the room, same window where they wrote help on a prior occasion, flickering away. I always think that is the first time I've seen it. Looks like an old lantern, doesn't it? We stood and watched that thing for 10 minutes. Both of us, like jaws, just slack dropped down. We're like, this is great. Put a shiver up my spine. I'll never forget it. So eerie looking.
One evening, I was in the home alone. I was helping out with a fundraiser. And while I was here, I was carrying a box into the front parlor. And as I was bringing the box in, I had a breath of pipe tobacco blown into my face. I had heard about the pipe tobacco odor experiences, but I never had it happen myself. I wasn't sure exactly what to do. I walked around the room sniffing the air, trying to figure out where the odor exactly was coming from. And that's when I stumbled across the rocking chair. It was rocking back and forth a good 4 inches, and there was no one in the chair. So rightfully, I panicked, and I ran out of the house. And these odors, which still persist to this day, may appear to be strange. However, they were the same last request of many of those who perished here. One evening, my wife and I were here for an event at this home. And while we were here, she took a stroll to the back of the house with a friend. While they were back there, they noticed a shadowy figure through the windows. Now, they panicked and they came racing to me, and I came to the back of the home to investigate. But I couldn't find any shadowy figure there. Later on, I came into the home and I searched the whole area, and there was no one in here. The shadowy figure has been seen in this home. There have been images of an old man's face that have been seen in windows. Certainly the shadowy figure, figure in black, and that seems to run from the back of the house to the side of the house. A few years ago, a couple of reporters received permission to spend the night in this home to do a story on the unusual occurrences here. While they were here, they set up a recorder in the front parlor. Later that evening, they decided to go out and take a cigarette break, so they put the recorder on record. They went outside and returned 20 minutes later. When they rewound the tape and put it on play, partway into it, they heard a male voice grunt and then say, "Help me."
Help me.
What is that?
I didn't hear anything.
You don't hear
Help
it?
me. that time.
You did.
No, we went out to smoke.
This is quite startling, but no more startling when they heard another voice from directly behind them say the exact same thing. The two panicked, turned around, found no one there.
Did you hear that?
However, a moment later, the solid oak conference table in that room began to pound up and down on the floor. The two reporters flew out of that
You
room.
gotta get out of here.
People often ask where they can go to experience ghosts in Wilmington. And of course, the prime location we feel is the old Gallow Hill home, BMS Architects. It is the most actively haunted home in Wilmington. We experience things here weekly on our tours, and it hasn't stopped in 7 years now.
Totally paranormal scene that really worked well for my tour, and I appreciate the spirits cooperating in that manner.